My name is Vivian Park, and I want to start with the group chat because the group chat is where it became real. I had been engaged to Jonathan Webb for 14 months. We had set our date, booked our venue, a small botanical garden 30 minutes outside the city, 32 guests, late afternoon ceremony with dinner afterward, and sent save the dates 8 months in advance. I had done everything correctly. I had been organized and early and thorough, the way I do everything, because I am the kind of person who understands that doing things correctly is the only protection you have against other people's carelessness. It did not protect me. 6 weeks before our wedding, my younger sister Camille announced her birthday party. Not a milestone birthday, her 28th. A Saturday afternoon barbecue at my parents' house, which she had decided to host on the same weekend as my wedding, on the same Saturday, beginning 3 hours before my ceremony was scheduled to start. I noticed the conflict immediately. I called my mother. She said Camille hadn't realized the dates overlapped. I said that was impossible. The save the dates had been out for 8 months. My mother said Camille had been going through a lot lately, and maybe I could be flexible. I asked what flexible meant. My mother said perhaps my venue could change the date. It was only a garden. Surely they had other Saturdays. I want you to understand something. I had 2 choices in that moment, and I made one of them deliberately. I could perform the grief I felt, the specific, sickening grief of understanding that your family does not take your life as seriously as they take your sister's convenience, or I could become very still and very clear. I chose still and clear. I am always more dangerous that way. The date is not changing, I said. I sent the save the date 8 months ago. Everyone has known. Vivian, my mother said, in the tone she uses when she is about to tell me something she knows I won't want to hear, Camille already invited 40 people. It would be so awkward for her to cancel now. Then she shouldn't have planned a party on my wedding day, I said. I will see everyone at the ceremony at 4 o'clock. I said goodbye. I hung up. 3 days later, the group chat, the family group chat that included my parents, my 2 aunts, 3 cousins, and Camille, lit up with a series of messages I will not reproduce in full because they were long, and some of them were unkind. The substance was this. The family had decided, collectively, that Camille's birthday party was the priority. They would attend her barbecue. They would try to make it to our wedding for at least the dinner portion if the timing worked out. If the timing worked out. 40 years of family. Save the dates, sent 8 months in advance. And the question of whether my wedding would fit into their afternoon. I read every message. I turn my phone face down on the kitchen table. Then, I went to find Marcus. Jonathan Webb, at the time of our wedding, was 34 years old. He was a software engineer and the co-founder of a company called Veritas Systems, which built enterprise data infrastructure that I am going to describe in the most basic terms because the technical specifics are less important than what they represent. He had built something from an idea and a partnership and several years of work that was real and growing and beginning to be recognized by people who understood what real and growing looked like in the technology sector. I knew this about him because I was his partner and I paid attention. What my family knew about Jonathan was that he was a software engineer, a fact my mother mentioned with a particular inflection that suggested she found it adequate but not remarkable, and that he was quiet. He was quiet in the way that certain people are quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are selective about when and where they say it. My family read this as shyness. It was not shyness. I found Jonathan in his home office, at his desk, doing exactly what he was usually doing at that hour. I sat down in the chair across from him. I told him what the group chat had said. I gave him the specifics in the calm, organized way I give information when the information is difficult, which is to say without editorial, just data. He listened. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" This is one of the things I love most about Marcus. Not what do you want to happen, which is a question about wishes. What do you want to do? Which is a question about action. He has always known the difference. I want to get married, I said. On our date, regardless of who comes. Then that's what we'll do, he said. We did not cancel the garden venue. We did not move the date. We did not call a family meeting or send a long message to the group chat or do any of the things I had seen other people do when their families behaved badly, the pleading, the negotiating, the gradual contraction of one's own wishes to fit someone else's availability. We did none of that. We kept our plans, and we told our friends, and we waited to see who would come. 4 of our 32 invited guests were from my family. All 4 were cousins who had accepted independently and arrived without telling my parents they were coming. The rest of our guests were Marcus's family, our friends, 2 colleagues, and 1 neighbor who had known Jonathan for 11 years and who gave a toast at dinner that made 3 people cry. 28 guests. A botanical garden in late afternoon. Jonathan in a gray suit. Me in a dress I had chosen without anyone's input and loved without reservation. It was a beautiful wedding. I want to tell you about the 4 cousins who came because they deserve to be in this story by name. Jenny, who had always been the one in our extended family who operated on her own moral compass regardless of social cost. Theo, who drove 4 hours round trip and did not mention it once. Ria, who brought a gift she had made herself, a small framed print she had lettered by hand with a line from something Jonathan had said once at a family dinner that she had written down because she thought it was beautiful. And Daniel, the youngest of us, who was 23 and who told me at the reception dinner that he had asked his parents if they were coming to my wedding and they had said probably not, and he had said then I'm going alone and had. 23 years old. I will not forget that. Jonathan gave a toast at our wedding dinner that I did not know he had prepared. He is not a natural public speaker. He prefers one-to-one conversation, the kind where the information actually transfers, but he had written something and he read it from his phone, and it was specific and unperformative, and at one point he looked at me directly and said, I've been waiting a long time to be in a room with 28 people who all know what kind of person you are. This is that room. I did not cry until the neighbor's toast, which came afterward and which undid me completely, and which I am not going to recount here, because some things belong to the evening where they happened. I want to tell you about the 4 cousins who came because they deserve to be in this story. Jenny, who had always operated on her own moral compass regardless of social cost. Theo, who drove 4 hours round trip and did not mention it once. Ria, who brought a gift she had made herself, a small framed print she had lettered by hand with a line from something Jonathan had said once at a family dinner that she had written down because she thought it was beautiful. And Daniel, the youngest of us, who was 23 and who told me at the reception that he had asked his parents if they were coming and they had said probably not, and he had said, then I am going alone and had. 23 years old. I will not forget that. Jonathan gave a toast at our wedding dinner that I did not know he had prepared. He is not a natural public speaker. He prefers the kind of conversation where information actually transfers. But he had written something and he read it from his phone, and at one point he looked at me directly and said, I have been waiting a long time to be in a room with 28 people who all know what kind of person you are. This is that room. I did not cry until the neighbor's toast, which came afterward, and which undid me completely, and which I will not recount here, because some things belong to the evening where they happened. My family sent a group card, signed by everyone, that arrived 2 days after the wedding. It said, sorry we missed it. The timing just didn't work out. Congratulations to you both. Love. All of us. There was a gift card for a department store for $50 enclosed. I put the card in a drawer. I did not acknowledge it. Not from bitterness. I want to be precise about this, but from a specific, deliberate decision that I had made sometime during the drive home from our botanical garden wedding, watching the evening light change over Marcus's profile as he drove. The decision was this. I was done managing my family's relationship with me. I was done performing gratitude for the minimum. I was done being the one who held the door open for people who walked through it looking somewhere else. My mother called 3 times in the month after the wedding. I took the first call, and it was short and surface level, and she did not apologize, and I did not invite an apology. I let the second and third calls go to voicemail. She did not leave messages, which told me something about the nature of the calls. They were check-ins, not communications. People who have something real to say leave messages. Jonathan and I moved into the house we had been renovating for 6 months, a project I had managed during the entire engagement period, because Jonathan was building a company and I was a project manager by profession, and the combination of those two facts produced an efficient, if slightly exhausting, domestic arrangement. The house was finished 2 weeks after we returned from our honeymoon, a week in Portugal that was the best week of my life up to that point, which is a measurement I expect to revise upward repeatedly. The first year of our marriage was the first year of my adult life in which I was not, on some level, performing for my family's approval. I had not known how much of my energy that performance consumed until I stopped performing it. The absence was not loss, it was space. Space that I filled with my work and my marriage, and 2 friends who had been at our wedding, and who I began to see more rather than less, because I had time now that I had previously not had. Camille got married 18 months after our wedding. I was not invited. I found this out through a cousin, not through any direct communication, and I received the information with the same quality of stillness I had been practicing since the group chat. I sent a gift. A good gift, a piece of kitchen equipment she had mentioned wanting. I did not attend. I was not asked to attend. The circle was completing itself with a neatness that almost felt deliberate. I told Jonathan about the gift. He said, "You sent a gift?" He was not critical. He was curious. "I sent a gift," I said, "because I am the kind of person who sends gifts. That has nothing to do with them." He looked at me for a moment. Then he said, "I would like to be more like you in about 40% of the ways." "Only 40?" I said. "The other 60 I'm working on separately," he said. "We have been married for 3 years, and he still makes me laugh like that, which is not a small thing." I want to tell you about the company because you need to understand what it was before I tell you what it became. Jonathan had co-founded Veritas Systems with a man named David Chin 5 years before we met. They had started it in the kind of office that tech companies start in, a converted warehouse with secondhand furniture and a coffee machine that broke twice a month, and they had built it on a specific idea about how large organizations handle data infrastructure. The idea was not flashy. It was precise and deeply functional, and it solved a problem that every enterprise with more than 1,000 employees had, and that most of them were solving badly, with expensive legacy systems. By the time Jonathan and I got married, Veritas had 240 employees, offices in 3 cities, and a client list that I am not going to reproduce because confidentiality agreements exist for good reasons. What I will tell you is that the client list would have been recognizable to anyone who read business news, and that the contracts on those clients were multi-year and substantial, and that Jonathan and David had been quietly, methodically building something that the people who understood it had been watching for 2 years. I had been watching it from the inside. I had watched Jonathan work, the quality of his attention, the precision of his decisions, the way he could hold 100 variables in his mind simultaneously and still ask the right question in a meeting at 7 in the morning. I had been his first audience for every version of every pitch, every partnership conversation, every difficult choice about whether to take outside capital and from whom and at what valuation. I knew Veritas in the way you know something when you have watched it be built from very close up. What my family knew about Veritas was that Jonathan worked in software. That was the extent of it. 18 months after our wedding, Veritas filed an S-1. This is the registration document that a company files when it intends to go public. It is a public document. It contains, among other things, the company's financials, its ownership structure, and the number of shares held by founders and major investors. It is not a secret document. No one in my family read it. The IPO priced 7 months after the S-1 filing. I will tell you the number because it is in the public record and because it is the number that matters to the rest of the story. Veritas Systems went public at a valuation that made Marcus's founder stake, after dilution across multiple funding rounds, carefully managed over 5 years, worth approximately $47 million. I want to be clear about something. I did not marry Jonathan because of $47 million. I married Jonathan because of the way he asked what I wanted to do rather than what I wanted to happen, and because he makes me laugh, and because he is the kind of person who builds things that last. The $47 million is the consequence of who he is, not the reason I am with him. The morning the stock opened, Jonathan and I were in our kitchen at 6:30. He had his laptop. I had coffee. We watched the opening price together, without speaking. When it cleared the offering price and kept moving, he looked at me across the kitchen table and said, Well, I agreed. Then I went to get ready for work because I had a project review at 9 and Jonathan had a board call at 8, and the fact that the number on the screen had a lot of zeros did not change the fact that the day had a schedule. My mother called me on a Thursday, 11 days after the Veritas IPO. She called my cell phone at 2:17 in the afternoon. I saw her name on the screen, and I held the phone in my hand for a moment, the specific moment of a person who has been expecting a thing and is now watching it arrive exactly as expected. I answered. Vivian, she said. Hi, honey. Her voice had the particular warmth of someone who has rehearsed a tone. How are you? How is Marcus? We've been thinking about you. We're well, I said. Jonathan is good. We saw the news, she said. About the company. That's just incredible. We always knew Jonathan was talented. She paused. We always said that. I did not respond to that sentence. I waited. I was thinking, she said, that it has been so long since we've all been together. Too long. Family is everything, and I feel like these past few years we've let things drift, and I'd love to your father, and I would love to have you and Jonathan over. Or we could all go out somewhere nice, somewhere Jonathan would like. We just want to reconnect. I let the silence run for 3 full seconds. This is a technique I learned from a negotiator who came to speak at a professional development seminar 5 years ago. Let the silence work. The person who fills silence first has the weaker position. My mother filled it. I know things have been complicated, she said. The wedding situation, we should have handled that differently. We've talked about it. Your father and I both feel terrible about how that went. Do you? I said. We do, she said. Vivian, you're our daughter. Whatever happened with Camille's party, we should have prioritized your wedding. We know that now. But we can't go back. We can only go forward, and I want my family together. That's all. I want to tell you what I felt in that moment because I think it is the most important part of the story, and I want to get it right. I did not feel triumph. I want to be clear about that because triumph would be the easy emotion, the satisfying one, the one that fits neatly into a story about justice. What I felt was something more complicated and more honest, a sadness that arrived not as a surprise but as a confirmation. I had known, somewhere in the part of yourself that knows things before you let yourself know them, that when I became associated with a large enough number, the phone would ring. I had known it, and I had hoped to be wrong, and I was not wrong, and the fact of being right about a thing you hope to be wrong about is a particular kind of grief. I breathed. I kept my voice very even. Mom, I said, I appreciate you calling. I want to say something, and I need you to hear it without defending yourself, if you can. She said she could. The wedding situation, as you're describing it, was not a situation. It was a choice. 40 people went to Camille's birthday party. One person came to my wedding from this family, and that was Cousin Jenny, who came because she wanted to and didn't ask anyone's permission. You sent a group card and a $50 gift card and never apologized. For 3 years, I have been the one not calling, and in 3 years, not one person in this family called to ask why. Nobody called to apologize. Nobody reached out until 11 days after a number appeared in the news. Silence. A longer one than mine. That's not fair, my mother started. Mom, I said gently. I'm not calling it unfair. I'm just describing what happened. Those are the facts. Another silence. What do you want me to say? She asked. Nothing that you're going to say because I named it, I said. When you figure out what you actually want to say, not what will repair the situation, but what's actually true, call me then. I'll answer. I said goodbye. I hung up. I sat in my office for a few minutes. Then I called Marcus. She called, I said, when he picked up. I know, he said. He had that quality of having expected this too. How are you? I'm all right, I said. I'm sad, but I'm all right. Do you want me to come home early? No, I said. I want you to come home at the normal time and make dinner, because it's your turn. He made dinner. He made something ambitious. It was very good. Before I tell you what happened next, if this story is reaching you, please subscribe right now and ring the bell. Every week on this channel there is a story like this one, about people who were overlooked, who built something real anyway, and who picked up the phone when the call finally came and answered it exactly right. Don't miss a single one. Now, let me tell you what my father said. My father called 4 days later. He called from his personal cell phone, not from the shared family number, which I noticed. He called on a Sunday morning at 9:15, which is when he has always called when he calls alone Sunday mornings before the day gets organized. My father is a different person from my mother. Not better or worse, different. He is a man who expresses himself in action rather than words, who shows up to things he cares about and doesn't show up to things he doesn't, and who had, on the day of my wedding, gone to Camille's birthday barbecue without, as far as I could tell, significant conflict about the choice. This is not cruelty. It is a different kind of failure. The failure of someone who simply goes along with the current because making a different choice would require generating friction, and friction is not something my father has ever been comfortable with. Vivian, he said. It's Dad. Hi, Dad. A pause. My father collects his words carefully. It takes him a moment. I didn't handle the wedding right, he said. I'm not going to tell you why or explain it. I just want you to know I know that. You deserved better than what you got from this family, and I was part of the problem. I did not say anything. I let the words be there. I'm not calling because of the money, he said. I want you to know that specifically. Your mother may be. I'm not inside her head. But I'm calling because I've been thinking about this for longer than 11 days, and I needed to say it. I believed him. I believe him still. My father is not a man who performs things he does not feel. He simply does not produce performance of any kind, which is its own set of problems, but not the problem of insincerity. Thank you, Dad, I said. Are you all right? He asked. I'm really good, I said. Jonathan and I are really good. I'd like to meet him properly, he said. If that's something you'd want. Let's talk about that, I said. Give me some time. Okay, he said. We talked for another 10 minutes, not about the wedding or the money or any of the things underneath this conversation. About his garden, which he has been expanding. About a documentary he had watched. About ordinary things that are sometimes the most honest available option. When we hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a while. Some things are fixable. Some are not. My father is fixable. My mother may be, in time, with honesty on both sides. Camille, I have not heard from Camille. Not a text, not an email, not a voicemail. I do not know if this means she has nothing to say, or if she is waiting for something, or if she is simply not yet a person who can look at herself without flinching. Any of those things could be true. I am, for the time being, not waiting. I want to tell you what Jonathan and I did with the money, because what you do with a large sum is a character question, and I think character questions deserve answers. We did not buy a bigger house. We own our house. We renovated it together, and we know every wall of it, and it is ours, and that is enough. We did not buy things whose primary purpose is to communicate wealth, because the communication of wealth is not a project we are interested in. We did not change our habits in any of the ways that people change habits when they are performing a new economic status. What we did, Jonathan established a scholarship fund at the university where he completed his computer science degree. The fund is for first-generation students in technical fields. It is named, quietly and without announcement, after his grandmother, who had encouraged him to apply to university when no one else in his family had done so, and who had died the year before Veritas filed its S-1, and who he has missed, visibly and without embarrassment, every day since. We funded it with an amount I am not going to specify because some things belong to the people they are for and not to the people watching. I started my own practice, a small project management consultancy I had been thinking about for 4 years and putting off because the timing was never right. The timing became right. I have 3 clients. I will have more. I am building something from an idea, and it is early and uncertain, and it is mine, which means I understand exactly why Jonathan spent 5 years building in that converted warehouse. We had dinner with David Chun and his wife in April. We had dinner with the 4 cousins who came to our wedding, all 4 of them together for the first time because I had realized that I had not properly thanked them for the choice they made, and thanking people for the choices that cost them something is a practice I intend to maintain. We are, in the most ordinary and private sense, happy. I should tell you something about the house because the house is a character in this story in ways I have not fully accounted for. It is a 1940s craftsman on a quiet street that we bought for a price that was affordable because it needed everything. We spent 8 months renovating it on weekends and on the evenings when work permitted and during a 2-week stretch in the summer when we both took time off and lived in the middle of it, covered in plaster dust and completely satisfied. We made every decision together and argued about 2 of them and resolved both arguments correctly. The kitchen is exactly the kitchen I wanted. The back room, which we use as a shared office, has bookshelves on 3 walls and afternoon light from a west-facing window, and is the room where I do my best thinking and where Jonathan does his best worrying, which for him produces the same quality of output as my thinking produces for me. It is the right house. We built it into the right house. It will be ours for a long time. The scholarship fund made its first awards in the spring, 6 students, first generation, technical fields, all of them in the kind of circumstances that Jonathan had not been in but had been adjacent to, close enough to understand. He did not attend the award ceremony because attending would have made it about him, and he did not want it to be about him. He read the letters the students wrote, which arrived by email, and he showed me 2 of them. I read them at the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening and understood, for the 100th time, why I had said yes when he asked. I should tell you something about the house. We bought it for a price that was affordable because it needed everything. We spent 8 months renovating it on weekends and evenings and during a 2-week stretch in the summer when we both took time off and lived in the middle of it, covered in plaster dust and completely satisfied. We argued about 2 decisions and resolved both correctly. The kitchen is the kitchen I wanted. The back room, which we use as a shared office, has bookshelves on 3 walls and afternoon light from a west-facing window, and is the room where I do my best thinking. It is the right house. We built it into the right house. The scholarship fund made its first awards in the spring. 6 students, first generation, technical fields, all of them in circumstances that Jonathan had been adjacent to, close enough to understand. He did not attend the ceremony because attending would have made it about him, and he did not want it to be about him. He read the letters the students wrote and showed me 2 of them. I read them at the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening and understood, for the 100th time, why I had said yes when he asked. She texted me in May, 5 months after the IPO. The text said, "Hey, I know things have been weird. I miss you. Can we talk?" I read it twice. I set the phone down. I made coffee. I thought about it while the coffee brewed. I miss you is a statement about Camille's experience.
It is not a statement about mine.
It is not an acknowledgement of what happened. It is not an apology. It is an opening which is more than I had, but it is an opening that begins with what she needs and asks me to supply it, which is a pattern I had participated in for 29 years and which I was not automatically going to return to. I texted back. I'd like to talk too. I need it to be an honest conversation about the wedding and what happened. If you're ready for that, let me know. I'm not going anywhere. She read it. The read receipt appeared immediately, which meant she was holding the phone.
She did not respond that day.
She did not respond the next day. On the third day she wrote, I know I hurt you. I've known for a long time. I'm not good at this, but I'm trying. Can I call you this weekend? I said yes. She called on a Saturday afternoon. She was, for most of the call, honest in the way that is uncomfortable and a little halting, the way honesty is when it hasn't been practiced in a while. She said she had been jealous of me for most of our adult lives and hadn't known how to do anything with the jealousy except act around it. She said the birthday party timing had not been an accident. She had known about the date, she had chosen it, and she had told herself a story about why it was justified and had believed the story until she didn't. She said she had watched me at the garden ceremony in a photograph one of the cousins had posted, and she had felt, for the first time, the actual weight of what she had done. I listened. I asked questions. I did not tell her it was fine because it was not fine. I did not tell her I forgave her because forgiveness is a process and not a sentence, and I was not going to rush it to make the call end more comfortably. What I said at the end was, thank you for saying all of that. It matters. I need some time, and I need it to be real going forward, not a visit we schedule because the situation changed. If you're in for the real version, I am too. I'm in, she said. I don't know yet if she means it. I am choosing to find out. There is a thing that happens when your circumstances change visibly, when a number appears in the news or a promotion is announced or a house gets renovated or any of the other markers by which people track other people's lives, and the people who are not there for the ordinary version of you suddenly become interested in the new version. It happens in business, and it happens in families, and it happens in the social fabric of any community where status is observed and where the observation of status changes how people orient themselves toward you. I had expected it. Expecting it did not make it painless. What it made it was clear. And clarity, I have found, is what you are left with once you stop hoping that the people who should see you will simply decide to see you without being required to. My family did not come to my wedding because they made a calculation. The calculation was, Camille's party is certain and immediate, and Vivian's wedding is also certain and immediate, but Vivian will still be here afterward, and it's easier to manage her disappointment than Camille's. That was the calculation. It was not performed with cruelty. I do not think my family is cruel. It was performed with the careless thoughtlessness of people who have always been able to rely on me to absorb things, and who had therefore never learned to be careful with me. I stopped being absorbent. I stopped managing the distance so that it felt comfortable from their side. I let the distance be what it was, and I did not reach across it, and in not reaching I discovered something important. I was fine. Genuinely, completely, specifically fine. I had a marriage and a house and a career and 4 cousins who came to a botanical garden without being asked, and a husband who makes dinner on his turn, and a company that had just proven that the thing we had watched being built from very close up was everything we had understood it to be. I did not need my family's attendance to make my wedding real. The wedding was real. I have photographs and a neighbor's toast that made 3 people cry and a memory of Jonathan in a gray suit in late afternoon light that I will carry for the rest of my life without diminishment. What the money changed was not my life. My life was already good. What the money changed was the conversation. It created a moment of visibility that forced a reckoning my family would not otherwise have had. My mother called because of the number. My father called because the number reminded him of what he had been avoiding. Camille texted because 5 months of watching from a distance had worn down whatever she had been telling herself. The money was a flashlight. It did not create what it illuminated. Everything it illuminated was already there, in the dark, exactly as it had been. I am 32 years old. I am building a business. I am 3 years into a marriage that is the best decision I have ever made. I live in a house I renovated room by room, and I know every wall of it, and on Saturday mornings Jonathan makes coffee, and we sit in the kitchen and talk about things that matter, and sometimes things that don't, and it is the most ordinary version of happiness imaginable, and it is mine, and I did not need anyone to show up for me to have it. It would have been nice if they had shown up. They didn't. I showed up for myself. That turned out to be enough. That was Vivian's story. And if it reached some part of you, if you have ever shown up for yourself when no one else did, or if you've ever had a phone ring at a very specific moment and known exactly why, drop a like right now. It costs you 1 tap, and it tells the algorithm that this story is worth sharing with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and ring that bell. Every week there is a new story on this channel about people who were overlooked and what they built in the silence. Leave a comment. Has someone ever called you after they saw the number? Or have you ever been the one who finally made the call that was long overdue? I want to hear it. See you in the next one.